In this video we're going to demonstrate you the Racal BCC72 military aircraft radio, avionics radio. This radio is a member of the Jaguar family of military radios. They are capable of frequency hopping and they are designed and manufactured by Racal during the 90s. The radio set, the model of radio is still in use today. It is compatible, the hopping method is compatible with the later Panther series of radios, which was derived from this radio. Now Racal was acquired by SCS Thompson, which was then later merged into Thales, which is a French conglomerate in military radios, and they still manufacture the Panther series of radios as said, which is backward compatible with the Jaguar radio. Let's see what is all included in this installation. First there is of course the radio module itself. It is not too big. It's not lightweight either. It's very rugged. As you see, there is a heatsink on the back and there is a heatsink on the front. This is basically the regulators, power regulators. The back is for the RF amplifier. We obviously have an antenna connector, we have a supply connector, and that cable we have, we're going to supply the radio from this power supply here, which is a 28 volt power supply, at least it's set for that, which is what the voltage that avionics radios use. We have a connector for the control box, which I'll show you in a minute, and we have a auxiliary connector for other equipment that can be connected to this radio. We have a interconnect cable. This cable connects the control box with the radio module. Control box is the BCC584B. This particular one is brand new, was never used, still in the original box, original packing. If I can get it out. This is the box. Hooks up to the radio, and it also can be hooked up to a optional remote control. At the front basically plugs into the handset or the fill unit. The fill unit is a programming unit that allows you to set the hopping sequence. Now obviously I don't have that, that was not sold with this radio, so it cannot be used in hopping mode without that fill gun, but it can be used in linear mode for both AM and FM, as I'll show you. Now the radio covers 225 to 400 megahertz in 25 kilohertz steps. That is the military aircraft band, and this radio is compatible with it. Normally that band is only used in amplitude modulation, as you might know, but this radio was also equipped with frequency modulation, which is non-standard for that band, but that is to keep the radio backward compatible, or not backward, but completely compatible with the Jaguar, the other Jaguar series of radios, which were man-pack and ground communication radios, military radios. This is the headset, military headset and microphone. Plugs into the box, control box. This is the switch for transmit receive. And those are basically all the components for this radio. We're going to hook it up and show you what it can do. Actually, the BCC72 Racal is described in Jane's Military Communications, 1993-94 I have here. The radio itself stems from 93. So this was the first year that the radio was in the description. Here you can see it. It's the Jaguar-U airborne radio. 225 to 400 megahertz. What you can do is just pause the video and then you can actually read it. AM and FM and frequency hopping. Secure speeds is another mode, and it's 7,000 channels, 25 kilohertz spacing. 10 milliwatts, 4 watts AM. Hang on, this is the let's see, airborne, yeah, here it is, airborne 10 milliwatts, 4 watts AM, 15 watts in frequency modulation. Manufactured by Racal Radio Ltd, which is now a subsidiary of Thales in France. The Racal BCC72, the Jaguar-U series of radios. As you can see, these are the land mobile versions of the Jaguar version, manpack and multi-role versions, and they're all compatible with each other. Now, of course, there aren't too many radios we can use as a second station to test it, because this is not a common band, but fortunately I do have a PRC-41 military radio. That's a vintage military radio, manpack, that was used in Vietnam. And the PRC-41 covers 250 megahertz all the way to 400 megahertz. But the downside is that the radio is only amplitude modulation. As I said, that is the standard modulation method for this band. This manpack radio was used to communicate with military fighters in Vietnam, which obviously also used the 225 to 400 military band. For the frequency modulation test, we will use an interesting radio. This is the Baofeng hand radio, HT radio, which is dual band, and the high band is the 1.25 megahertz band, ham band. That band is only 222 to 225 megahertz. But this radio covers 210 to 260 megahertz, so we should have no problem using that radio, this radio, to test our BCC72 Jaguar radio in frequency modulation mode. So that's what we will use for the FM test, and the PRC-41 for the amplitude modulation test. Alright, we got it all hooked up. It looks a little bit convoluted, but that's because the interconnect cable that I have is pretty short and it's angled. So I plugged it in here. This is the power. This is the TNC connector that is the RF and antenna output. And we have the military headset hooked up to the audio and connector here on the front. Now we have the radio connected to a relative watt meter and a dummy load, so we don't want to transmit on those frequencies over the air, but this will show you the function. So like I said, it looks a bit convoluted, but it's a pretty standard normal connector that's used there. So it's possible to make a longer cable yourself. I think there's only 7 or 8 actual wires inside that cable, so that's easy to do. But for the demo, this will work fine. Alright, let's turn it on. We got the power supply running. It first does a self-test, and then we're ready to go. Defaults at 250 megahertz. You could hear the squelch come out. There is a squelch test which will make sure that it actually works. Let's go over the controls. There is obviously volume. We have brightness for the display. We have the 25 kilohertz selector. We have the megahertzes. And here, well, this is the megahertz, this is 100 kilohertz, and this is 25 kilohertz. We have low power and high power. I'll show you that in a minute. Low power I think is 10 milliwatts. High power depends on the modulation method. I think frequency modulation is about 20 watts and AM is about 10 watts. Not 100% sure. Now the radio has several modes. C is frequency modulation. This is a hop mode. As you can hear, the radio is protesting here. That's because hopping is not programmed. This is another hop mode. Another hop mode. This is amplitude modulation, and again we're back on frequency modulation. So like I said, we'll show you we'll demonstrate you the radio on frequency modulation as well as amplitude modulation. Oop, it cycles all the way around. Amplitude modulation, frequency modulation. Radio has normal transmit receive mode. This is transceive plus guard receiver. I think what is the guard frequency? 200. I'm not 100% sure. 352 or something like that is the emergency frequency in the military band. The guard receiver is set at that frequency, fixed. So this is transmit receive plus guard. So it listens at two frequencies now. This is only the guard receiver. So now it won't have the main receiver active, only the guard. Cell, not 100% sure what that is, but it must have something to do with the hopper, probably the programming mode. When you hook it up to the key, to the what they call the programming gun. Now the radio has 29 channels, but like I said, they need to be externally programmed. You can't program them from here. That's too bad. But without the programming gun, you cannot do that. So as you can hear, the radio will protest because there has nothing been programmed. And now we're back on main dial. This is to zero the hopper. If the radio falls into enemy hands or is about to, all you have to do is pull this here and everything gets reset. The hop sequence as well as the memory channels. And the only way to get out of that is to load it. But like I said, we don't have that, so it defaults back to the normal operation. Now I told you it covers 225 to 400, all the way in 25 kilohertz steps. This is the highest frequency. 250, 975 is the highest. So for all practical purposes, it's 225 to 400 megahertz, which is what I said. The military aircraft band. All military aircraft have that as their main frequency of operation. Okay, let's see if we can get some signals out of this radio. Alright, let's do our first test at 240 megahertz. As you can see, that's what we have here. We have amplitude modulation selected as the mode. Transmit receive only. Volume is up. Everything is ready to go. We got the radio rang of 28 volts. And I did hook up a speaker. Makes it a little bit easier for the test. And we're gonna transmit with our PRC41 amplitude modulated military radio, also set at 240 megahertz. So if I transmit with my PRC, things should actually be working. 1, 2, 3 test. 1, 2, 3 testing. 1, 2, 3 testing. 1, 2, 3 testing. That seems to work. We are at 240 megahertz. Let's see what happens when I go 25 up. Nothing. Back to 240. 1, 2, 3, over. That is working excellent. Let's do the next test with frequency modulation for the for the BCC72. Alright, we got the Baofeng transceiver.
Frequency mode.
We are at 240 megahertz on the Baofeng, frequency modulated of course. We're still at 240 here, but I have changed to frequency modulation, that is mode C. We're still at the speaker. I did have to hook up a little whip antenna on the 30 dB dummy load, because the dummy load that I have on the radio attenuates too much, almost nothing is coming out. So let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing frequency modulation. Frequency modulation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Frequency modulation at 240 megahertz. And that seems to work just fine. Test 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 testing. Frequency modulation. If I go to 975. Nothing coming through. If I go to 2.5, nothing coming through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that works again. Frequency modulation is doing the job. Alright, let's now try a different frequency. 350. Of course, we're still on dummy loads here. Don't want to cause any troubles. Amplitude modulation 350. Got to do the same thing here. .350 on the PRC41 AM radio. And let's see what we get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amplitude modulation. 350 megahertz amplitude modulation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amplitude modulation, and that is working. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I can't show you frequency modulation at this frequency because the Baofeng only goes to 260, but you have to take my word for it. It works quite well here. Alright, let's see how the BCC72 military radio is doing at amplitude modulation transmit. For that we have hooked up the PRC41 to this speaker here. And the radio is at 350 megahertz, as you can see. Same as the BCC72 radio. And let's see what we're gonna get. I did hook up a handset. That's a little bit easier, but it works the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amplitude modulation receiving on PRC41. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amplitude modulation. That works quite well. Just to make sure that now we have the BCC72 in frequency modulation. Nothing coming through. That's obviously not working on an AM receiver. So now we're on frequency modulation on 350 megahertz, and on AM we hear nothing. Back to AM. 1, 2, 3 amplitude modulation. Alright, let's do that same test at 250. And the same here. .250. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amplitude modulation on 250. 250 megahertz. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amplitude modulation from BCC72 to PRC41. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 works quite well. Alright, let's now try frequency modulation at this frequency, which should be possible with our handheld radio. Alright, frequency modulation transmit test for the BCC72 Racal We're at 240 megahertz, 240 megahertz, which is also what we have on the Baofeng. 240 megahertz. 1 2 3 4 5 testing frequency modulation. 1 2 3 4 5 frequency modulation from BCC72 to Baofeng for frequency modulation at 240 megahertz. That works quite well. Let's go to low power. Now remember, high power is about 15 watt. Low power is, I think, 10 milliwatts, so don't expect miracles. We're at low power. 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 10 milliwatts from BCC72 to Baofeng handheld radio. Works quite well. Everything is on dummy loads. That dummy load is completely sealed off. That dummy load is 30 dB. 1 2 3 4 5. As you can see, working quite well. The BCC72 military transceiver aircraft radio, described in Jane's Military Communications, as I showed you, and complete with control unit, headset, and power cable and interconnect cable ready to go. Thank you for watching this video.